April 10th, 2026. Well, I want to get back to the coverage of what my attitudes toward is what's happened with the Iran war. And so basically, my basic take on the whole thing, I know there's a lot of negativity running around in certain circles. So the left is totally crazy, and a certain aspect of the right is also sort of crazy uh, about it. I think what I would have to say is the current status is that basically what happened, I think, was that there was overconfidence and the idea that the people of Iran, if the regime was suffered a major blow, would rise up and overthrow the regime, and therefore the problems we're now facing would never occur because the regime would be overthrown. I think that is apparently part of the assumption that Trump must have been working on. Now, I know there are certain press reports that suggest that he didn't agree with that, although he'd talked about ideas along that line about regime change. And I know that there was a whole thing where I guess, various Western intelligence agencies, Mossad and a bunch of other ones, helped promote a series of riots earlier on for people who are very dissatisfied. And also another thing that was been mentioned by President Trump is that some weapons that were supposed to be delivered by a certain group to some people inside of Iran apparently weren't delivered. They just kept them for themselves. So I think the whole idea of the popular revolution failed, and therefore we're in the situation that we're in, which is with the Iranians using the predictable blockage of the Straits of Hormuz as a weapon. And as far as the actual war itself, up to now, we definitely achieved a massive amount of destruction of Iranian assets. I know there's no doubt about that. A lot of their military capability has been destroyed. Missile launchers have been destroyed, and so forth. And a lot of war-supporting industry has been destroyed. So they have suffered a major blow. Plus, a lot of their leadership has been killed. The question is, though, are the people that replaced them really any better than the ones that preceded them? And I think that's going to be the question. It's going to still have to play out over some time here to see how it goes. So that's kind of my general attitude. Of course, as you know, I was never too keen on this thing to begin with. I'm not quite in the shape of the never do it, never think about it school I hear. And that's not at all where I am. I'm just thinking when you consider the options practically and looking at where we were beforehand, we pretty well disrupted and prevented their ability to make a large quantity of nuclear weapons by destroying their major nuclear enrichment sites. Can they make, if given time to recover, make a few bombs with what they have? Yes. But the real risk we had last year wasn't a few 20 kiloton bombs. The question was a full-scale production operation to make a nuclear arsenal and eventually make longer-range missiles, which could even reach the United States, for example. And that was what we were, I think, achieved during the so-called 12-day war of last June, had been achieved. By reopening this thing and going for what? More destruction and the regime. I think the regime change is the only thing that makes sense in this thing. It really is being worth the costs involved politically. So, at any rate, I'll get into a little bit more now where I think we're going to go from here. If you like these videos, please give me a like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, or you can also follow me on Rumble as I post there as well. So, so that gives you the kind of thrust of my general attitude. Going forward now, we're in a supposed 2-week ceasefire. But then again, as ceasefires go off in the Middle East, there's always a little bit of follow-up, right? As I remember, for instance, the 73 war between the Arab-Israeli war, and during that period, the original UN ceasefire, I think, broke down, and the thing raged on for 2 or 3 days afterwards. And even after that, there was artillery exchanges on the Syrian front for quite a while. So, as an example, historically, this is not unprecedented that the Iranians would try to get a few shots in, and maybe the Israelis got a few shots in at the end. And apparently, one thing that happened was interesting. Apparently, some of the Gulf states got a few shots in afterwards. There was some attacks on some oil facilities, which apparently wasn't the Israelis or us. Apparently, it was some of the Emirates and so forth. So, and then, of course, I think that was that a series of Israeli attacks on Lebanon right after it was ill-timed from a point of view of us achieving our goals here, which then allowed the Iranians to fabricate the story that the situation in Lebanon was somehow as part of the deal. I doubt we would have made a deal if that was clearly in there. Or maybe there was just ambiguity, but now all the relative forces are all chiming in. Yeah, it was in there. It was in there. Even our Pakistanis there. So anyhow, as well as French. Well, the French have always been involved with Lebanon in that area, right? And so anyhow. So we're looking forward to the meeting between Vice President Vance and his negotiating team and the Iranians, which will occur in Pakistan. And we'll have to iron up the final details of this situation. Right now, the situation is looking a little bit bleak in some ways. I mean, the idea that we're going to end up in a situation where the Iranians have formal control over the Straits of Hormuz and will charge a toll for sending a ship through it. Something on the order, they're talking about $1 per barrel of oil would be a toll. Kind of a small tax, that they could put on it for shipping anything through. And, well, that's not exactly what I would say is what we were looking for here. And that's why I say without the regime change, the whole operation was probably dubious because we'd already pretty much achieved our basic nuclear goal earlier. Now, they apparently have in some form a certain amount of uranium hexafluoride with the uranium enriched to 60%. So that's like a stage or so away from going to the 90+%, which you use for weapons grade. And then they would have to go through chemical processing to turn it into uranium metal and, well, all that stuff to actually make the material for a bomb. However, I don't know that their centrifuge systems are still operative since we pretty thoroughly bombed those things. So that's kind of, I think that aspect was kind of, well, it'd be nice to get it back. But then again, if they're going to have centrifuges in the future, then they could still go back and make some more potentially. Of course, then that would require some president to decide or to take some actions. And so, so I don't know. It may very well turn out that if these negotiations are successful, we will get the straits finally opened up again. And I think that's kind of where we're looking for. I don't think regime change is going to happen. And I know that we're wanting the whole issue about the uranium hexafluoride, which is what we're really talking about. It's not dust. Let me tell you, it's not dust. It's a gas. Okay. Why can't people hear it? So anyhow, but the point is, we still don't know. Is it all located in one area? Is it located was it moved out of these sites before we bombed them in the midnight hammer attack? Or were they actually still on site at these various three areas and maybe buried under the rubble? And I've mentioned that before. I don't know. Intelligence, we may know that. The CIA may know that. Or they may not. I mean, that's something we're kind of left a little bit in the dark about at the moment. But so that's kind of where I think we are with our situation. This could turn out to be I don't know. Like I said, that right now the situation is not so good with oil prices up. And remember, to me, the big issue is keeping the Democrats from winning a big majority in the fall here. I've always thought that the odds are, unless something goes our way in a way that's unlikely, that they're going to win the House. I was hoping we could hold on to the Senate so that essentially we would still be in a position with two of the three power branches and actually the Supreme Court too, to basically hold them back again, and maybe things would move in a positive direction. We're never helped by the fact that Trump continues to use over the top rhetoric about everything, rather than I mean now they got everybody yelling war crimes. It's about extinguishing a civilization or something. I mean, first of all, that's not going to happen. Even a relatively large nuclear attack would not actually eliminate the Persian civilization forever. Yeah, it might kill half of them, but the bottom line is they would come back. I mean, after all, the human race has historically faced near extinction and came back. So but a nuclear attack would put them out of business, so that we won't have to worry about them in the near term. I think that's true. But they're not going to do a nuclear attack. I know there were people, as Daniel Davis was freaking out one morning. He might do a nuclear attack. This guy is, I tell you one thing, Trump is pretty glad he didn't appoint him to anything. The guy sounds like Mr. Panic all the time. But I'm getting to where I can't even stand listening to these people anymore. They're so over the top and ridiculous. But at the same time, we have to sort of bring this thing to a conclusion and try to get the Gulf states back into producing oil here. And one thing I still think there's going to be some leverage in the following way is, okay, China's got to want this to come to an end, right? I mean, really. Behind the scenes, they've got to be pushing Iran to come to a settlement too. And remember, China and Pakistan also have a relationship. You know, I remember that clash with the Indians and the Pakistani Air Forces. What kind of missiles were the Pakistan? They were using Chinese missiles, weren't they? The PL-15s. So yeah, I'm just saying that I think we got to be a little careful here. The ceasefire is probably a good idea. There's going to be some little breakages, and I think we can kind of tell the Israelis to chill for a while, and maybe we can work out something. Because I think that then later on we can go after Hezbollah again. Wait for Hezbollah to do something, and then we can pound them. But for the moment, I think it'd be good to kind of hold it, and if we can, and try to get focused on, getting the strait open. And I think that's kind of where we're going. So anyway, that's my view on that. Now, one other thing I've run into is this guy on History Legends. I watch him, and he's come up with an interesting theory that in reality, what might have been going on, that there's some rather idiosyncrasy or strange, what do you call it, idiosyncrasies about the operation in the desert there, to rescue the pilot or the co-pilot, the weapon system officer. Now I'm doing it too, and that they were arguing that this guy's arguing that maybe this was all about an attempt to go after some of this uranium, and that somehow maybe the F-15 shoot down led to a change in mission, perhaps, or that maybe it was both at the same time, that they were actually going after the uranium, but that there was that they did a rescue of that individual at the same time. And it throws in possibilities. It doesn't buy the theory that they were actually stuck in the sand because they were actually on an airstrip. And also the Iranians had kind of goofed up because they hadn't put blockages on the airstrip to prevent planes from landing. And but apparently that maybe at some point they did react and attack that landing site, which led to the planes getting shot up. And maybe that is why they had to fly in some lighter planes to rescue the people and get them out of there. It's an interesting theory. I don't know if it's true or not, but I thought that was an interesting little video if you ever follow the guy on History Legends. This was a little length. It's 30 minutes if you like it. But I'm not endorsing it. I just think it's an interesting twist that there could be a little bit of a cover story going on here at the same time. Apparently it is interesting that we haven't seen the pilot and weapon system officer yet. You'd think they would kind of, put him on for an interview or something to kind of go, hey, we got him. But we don't know what's going on there. But at any rate, that was an interesting side theory I'll throw out there for everybody to think about, that maybe there was a little bit more to that operation, given the scale of it was pretty big. It was about on the scale of what you'd have if you were going to do a special forces raid on one of those nuclear sites, I would think. And so maybe there's a little more to it than that. But anyway, so I'll be wrapping this up for now. And as always, I'll be posting this on YouTube and Rumble, and the address of my social media accounts are in the description below. So all for this time.